Very
Sorry.
good. Our next speaker is Dr. Francisco Viray. Dr. Viray is the President and CEO of TransAsia Oil and Energy Development Corporation, a member of the FINMA Group. Dr. Viray was also Secretary of Energy from 1994 to 1998, President of the National Power Corporation in 1993, and Dean of the University of the Philippines College of Engineering and Executive Director of its National Engineering Center. Dr. Viray is here with us today to give us the private sector viewpoint. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Viray.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's not easy to quantify the impact of the results of a macro study, more so if done from a global perspective. At the micro level, more so at the business enterprise level, and more so at the level of our company, where the oil consumption is less than a drop in the bucket compared globally. Couple this with the twin realities that I am not an economist just like the rest of my fellow speakers here, and have no access to a sophisticated simulation model. For these reasons, my short reaction to the paper will be based on experience during my long years of career in academia, government, and the private sector, doing teaching, research, policy making, and managing government and private enterprises. So you will be hearing papers based on a very structured research to a down-to-earth paper like mine. In determining, and I quote, business strategies in a high commodity price world, unquote, which was the suggested topic to build upon my reaction paper to the presentation, I will simply look at the impact of oil scarcity generally across all business enterprises and talk of strategies we are taking at my company. But before that, and as a transition from the paper presented to my reaction paper, let me share with you my inferred conclusions, which is not based on any scientific study but on observations. And therefore, I stand to be corrected by my fellow speakers here on the effect of oil scarcity to the Philippines. Okay? Namely, one, possible lowering of GDP growth. Two, impact on the balance of payments due to higher import costs of crude oil and finished petroleum products. Incidentally, this was the key performance index of the then Ministry of Energy in the 70s under the late Hieronymus Velasco, when it developed geothermal and hydro resources of the country in Luzon and in Mindanao. Third is inflation. Prices of commodities and transportation rises directly, and sometimes, and more often than not, psychologically. Okay? People in the Philippines think that if the price of oil increases, everything else has to follow. And finally, cost of money. At the business enterprise level, the aforementioned observations could give rise to the following. One, lower capacity utilization of production assets because of slower growth of market. Second, increase in cost of imported materials and inputs brought about by the global increase in prices of commodities, especially metals. Third, pressure on increases in prices of domestically sourced inputs and clamor for increases in salaries and wages from personnel because of inflation. All this put together increases operating costs of an enterprise. And in a competitive market, recovering all these increases from your customers is impossible. TransAsia Oil is a company engaged in upstream oil and gas exploration, power generation, and electricity supply business. For that matter, increase in oil prices is advantageous for us as far as our exploration business is concerned. Although to have direct benefits, we have to discover oil and gas. But negatively affects our power generation business, which is at the moment made up mostly of oil-based power plants. For the latter, we renegotiate our contracts to include fuel cost adjustments although this is at the risk of losing your customers, or find alternative sources of supply in the short term if we want to remain competitive, and build greenfield plants using non-oil fuels, which means we have to diversify fuel types for the medium and long term. However, although there is an implicit decoupling of price behavior between oil and non-oil fuels, okay, although the study results showed otherwise, we expect non-oil fuels to likewise follow oil price behavior in the medium term. In other words, there's just a time lag. But even if the ex-mine prices of other fuels do not increase at the same time as oil, transportation of such fuel uses oil and can therefore give rise to higher delivered costs. Moreover, our spare parts cost will increase. Transportation cost, although a very small percentage for operating expenses, will also increase. We give annual inflation-based increases for our human resource. In short, oil scarcity, which translates into higher prices of oil, increases our operating expense. And as to strategies to cope with it, we have limited options, like increasing human resource productivity and efficiency of doing business, such as minimizing waste and saving on energy consumption. Although our executives are not yet ready to give up luxury cars for more efficient sedans. So far, our experience parallels the conclusion of the paper, that is, a gradual and moderate increase in oil scarcity allows us to cope with it. And for that matter, this is reflective also of the country's ability to tide over the impacts and the Filipinos' ability to cope and accept the realities of oil scarcity. That is, the public can live with gradual and moderate increase in prices of petroleum products. Okay. Compared to 2008, when the prices of crude oil or petroleum products reached the same level as today, traffic is a lot heavier today than in 2008, which simply means that people have already adjusted to the current price. On the other hand, volatile and frequent increases do not give us time to react strategically in the short term, and one has to have deep pockets to survive and weather the disturbance through the medium term. So, with the oil scarcity a stark reality, scenario-based strategic business planning is now a must for my company to enable us to cope and survive with oil scarcity shocks even in the short term. Even if oil prices start to go down, we do not lower our guard and become complacent again. However, some still believe that solutions to oil scarcity must be reactive rather than proactive, which to me is definitely not the way to go, whether at the policy-making body or at the enterprise level. Ningas Kugon should be done away when it comes to dealing with oil scarcity. Moreover, effective solutions have gestation periods and are not off the shelf. Our proactive stance in my company in dealing with high oil prices has enabled us today to cope with the current continuing increase in oil prices. Lastly, if oil scarcity's effect on interest rate is to lower it, the oil will grab it as an opportunity to make strategic investments by diversifying our resources in anticipation of recovery from severe shocks. Otherwise, it's a double whammy for us and negates good opportunities open for our oil exploration business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr.